Hey everyone, welcome to Overwatch News. The date is 28th of October, 6:55 a.m. It's 12 degrees here in Colorado with 10 inches of fresh new snow. The news cycle's not huge today, so let's go over what's happening. Let's see. Drudge Report headline is still ISIS leader killed, crying, whimpering, screaming. They're also talking about the new face of ISIS appointed. I think they've already killed the second in command. So good job, CAG, Special Forces, whoever went out and got him. All right, so today over on, it looks like I already killed Zero Hedge. Here's Zero Hedge. Today's headlines in Zero Hedge are, they're not, they're just interesting. Here's an op-ed piece of something about commuting in London that doesn't really critical to us. So Baghdadi apparently invaded 2 or 3 American raids before a critical tip led to his downfall. EU Brexit actually was delayed from October 31st to January 31st. Boris Johnson's trying to push a general election. I hope he kind of gets it. Here's one of the stories I wanted to point out, though. Europe's populist wave. We're seeing this populist kind of party system go around the world. You're seeing it in Chile. You're seeing it in Portugal now. We've seen it in Iraq. We've seen it pretty much everywhere. Well, Brexit party, they're just pushing back against the establishment and the globalists, which is, I like it because, I think we need a global economy, but I don't think we need a one world government or UN type or something like that. So I think this is pretty cool. Their party's going to be called Chega or Enough. They've already secured a seat in Parliament, and they say it is the first time an anti-establishment party has entered Parliament since Portugal became a democracy in 1974. Campaigned on the theme of law and order and opposition to both political correctness and the imposition of cultural Marxism. Go Portugal, hell yeah. I hope these guys do well, and I hope they're not like a violent dictator. Please, no more of those. We had enough in the 20th century. All right, in other news, so this was another article that came out today. It's not really news, it's kind of old news, but apparently Herbert Hoover built the Federal Broadcasting Shield in 1927. Roosevelt fashioned it into a weapon in 1934, and Democrats have never put it down since. One might consider the elaborate FCC speech barriers a poll tax on public debate. So apparently, back in the 20s, they had a mostly free and independent press until the broadcasting in the 1920s. Within a few small years, a small group of Republicans, progressives, and corporate interests successfully nationalized the airwaves with restrictive licensing that blocked competition, rewarded insiders, and squelched dissent. So basically, the article's saying they actually pulled some people off air back in just after 1933. So administrative officials promised associates wages. Scorched earth campaign against any independent voice of dissent while generously rewarding supporters. Popular radio talk show hosts Father Charles Coughlin and Bo Carter were dramatically forced off the air. New Republic columnist and author John Flynn was successfully targeted for censorship by FDR himself. So now we're talking government censorship back to 1933-34. That's not a good trend. I will say I'm not an overly religious guy. I'm not going to proselytize any of that. I know that back in the 60s, like 63, there was a church that criticized a senator or something like that and cost him his seat. So that's why, as a 501c3, you cannot talk any politics. I don't agree with that at all whatsoever. I think, if this is your church, your congregation, your mosque, whatever it is, because mosques, they don't follow that rule. They're going to talk that all day long because, as you know, Islam is a political, ideological system, and the imam is basically their political and religious leader, and that's just how they work. I think a lot of churches used to work like that. There's some extreme fringe churches too, but if you're in a temple, if you're in a Buddhist temple or monastery or whatever, I think you should be able to say whatever you want about politics from behind the pulpit. Maybe that's time for churches to start paying taxes and say whatever they want. I mean, voluntarily, don't force it through government. Stop forcing things through government. Okay, so we talked about that. We talked about Europe. Okay. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, last week the Mexican army was almost completely defeated with they forced the release of El Chapo's son. They outgunned, the police and the military. They had 50 cal sniper rifles, whatever. Any rifle can be a sniper rifle, and they had RPGs and grenades. So they had true military weapons. They've had 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns. So it's not looking good for the cartel situation. But, it hasn't for a long time. I mean, there were huge skirmishes. But, these guys literally just defeated the, Mexican military. Anyway, so that was Culiacan. I'm not I'm horrible at Spanish. Capital of Sinaloa and Mexican state were advised to stay off the streets and out of the crossfires. Mexican authorities endured, it's early, an hours-long gun battle with cartel fighters. Yeah, not good. Here's the other story, the reason I bring that up. 40 skulls found at an altar in den of Mexican cartel suspects. Police found more than 40 skulls, dozens of bones, and a fetus in a glass jar next to an altar in the den of the suspected drug traffickers in Mexico City. During a raid this week, authorities said. Now, here's something to bring up. Over the past decade, there has been a rise in like the Día de Muerto, something or other religion. Basically, they're celebrating death, and that's if you see all these Day of the Dead skulls, that's why. It's now starting to actually become a religion in Mexico. And it's really bad. A lot of Mexican churches are having, and Central American churches are having a rise in the number of, they think it's demon possessions, but I mean just people devolving into drugs and alcohol. I mean, it's just the same as you're seeing here. So it might not be connected, but it looks like there is some connection. That, of course, is speculation. That is not a given. Well, wait to see what the facts come out. Okay, so we talked a little bit yesterday about the survivors and victims on shocking state-sanctioned organ harvesting in China. Now, I wanted to bring this up a little bit more. Apparently, this has been happening, it looks like, since 2004. And they're mainly people of the Falun Gong practitioners. So, Falun Gong, it's kind of a religion, kind of not. Let me just find out what it is again. I had a hard time remembering. Okay, so Falun Gong is... the Falun Dafa is a modern Chinese spiritual practice that combines meditation and Qigong exercises with a moral philosophy centered on the tenets of truthfulness, compassion, and doesn't sound bad, but they do, looks like, have the original Buddhist swastika, so that's not great. I don't know. I'd have to look into that more. Not cool. All right, so we there's a couple other headlines on Drudge Report, but nothing really urgent. Oh, Katie Hill did resign today. Katie Hill was on a House Ethics Committee or something, and she was caught in a polyamorous relationship with one of her staffers. So, not ethical, not great if you're sitting on an ethics committee. Anyways, yeah, they basically had a threesome relationship, or they call it a throuple, and a bunch of nude videos leaked. And somebody said there was like a World War II era from the German side tattoo that she was showing off. I don't know. World War II era could mean anything. It could be the white star they put on the side of U.S. trucks. I don't know. I didn't see the tattoo. I don't want to see the photos. All right, moving on. There aren't really any new emergencies on the EDIS map. We do have the police situation still ongoing down there in Chile, and that's been marked. There's a couple other things from like early September. There was a biohazard event in New Zealand. We had a bunch here in America, but it looks like, they've all been taken off the disaster map. Excuse me, so that's good. We had a couple small earthquakes last night. The guy from Suspicious Observers does a Quake Watch news website as well. He's a pretty good predictor of earthquakes. Not, nobody's 100%, but I mean, he's not bad. He does a pretty good job. So not a whole lot going on there. Here's our weather forecast. Let me move my thing. Weather forecast. So Monday here, that's where we are in about an hour. So it looks like over the Rockies, we're going to have snow, especially at Denver, Kansas, Nebraska. Albuquerque's not going to get hit too much in New Mexico. Nothing going on in Arizona. Dallas is going to have rain. Great Lakes area is going to see snow tomorrow morning and tonight. Denver, we're going to have another storm tonight, along with the storm that's going on right now, and it's going to hit us, what did it say? It showed, I think, noon, 10 o'clock tomorrow. We'll be in the thick of it. Yeah. So about 10 o'clock tomorrow, the second storm system moves in. Now, the jet stream's still moving south down towards the Rockies, and it's bringing the Arctic winds with it. But, like I said the other day, we've got this other storm coming up through New Orleans, Houston, Dallas, and that's going to converge with the cold storm coming in. So Oklahoma City, I don't know. Oklahomans, you might have some tornadoes. We'll see. It seems like it's really cold, but, cold, hot, wind, mixing together. Just saying. Stay safe down there, guys. All right. And, yeah, it looks like this is going to be the last storm system for a while. I was kind of thinking there might be one more. There she is. Coming next week with the jet stream still what it is. So it looks like next Monday, 7 p.m., it's going to be in Wyoming. It's going to be in Montana. Let's see if she comes down. South Dakota. Moving on east. Nebraska. All right. That looks like it's not coming down to us. But guys up north, beware. There's another storm coming in. All right. So here's a follow-up to the Texas A&M shooting. Let me see where we're at. We're at 5 minutes. Perfect. Texas A&M shooting. guys, I'm going to say this. Get your concealed carry permit. Learn how to train. Learn how to be a first responder. Get your first aid. It's really kind of imperative. This stuff's kind of happening more and more. And it's kind of interesting. I wanted to touch on today this shooting, 2 dead, 14 injured. It looks like they have not found who it is. I don't know. It's an off-campus party at A&M, and I did see the video coming out of it, and it looked not quite like the Paris nightclub, but close. I don't know. Nobody knows what weapon they used or anything, but basically, it's bad. So it's not good. Anytime you see this, it just breaks your heart. So, like I said, get your concealed carry. Learn how to use any means of self-defense or getting out of there. And, train. That way, at least, if you're in one of those situations, you can keep a level head, stay calm, and get out of Dodge. Also, so years ago, I thought in the cities that would be without rule of law, extreme rule of law, like martial law, and then out in the countries and the suburbs, it would be without rule of law. What we're seeing is actually the opposite. We're seeing without rule of law in a lot of the cities, and then extreme rule of law out in the suburbs and subdivisions, because, out there's not a whole lot of crime, but a lot of guys are being trained. Hey, just go after anything you see. These are what you look for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, some of the criminals are starting to move out into the suburbs, and they're doing it with more frequency. Now, here's the interesting part. You'll see the FBI and CDC and a lot of other government agencies, city governments, et cetera, say that all violent crime is on decline. It is in the suburbs and subdivisions, and it has been for a long time. So, there's like near no crime in the subdivision suburbs. Unless you're around a really major city with bad crime. But in the cities, they're having a hard time either reporting it, finding out who they are, getting arrests. And something like, there was just an article out of Chicago that something like 67% of murders in Chicago are never solved. That's not good. People are literally getting away with murder in Chicago. And I'm not blaming Chicago PD. I will blame Democrats for what they created, unfortunately. It's based on the policies. It's not a partisan thing. It's just, if you look at how the policies from the Democratic Party have always played out at time after time after time after time after time, period infinity ever, they've all been garbage. So anytime a city turns from Democrat or Republican to Democrat, the city is going to devolve into filth, chaos, homelessness, drug abuse problems, etc., mental health problems. It's not just a partisan thing. It's just, like we talked about yesterday, feelings, not policy. We need policy that will effectively work and accomplish what we're trying to do, not just how we feel about it. Because I feel empathy for every single person that's got mental health, and I want to see things get better, but they're not. So they're actually getting worse for the time being. Hopefully they'll start getting better soon. Anyways, the other reason for this reporting not going exactly well is because basically what we're seeing is that there are cities that don't report crime, like they're supposed to. So if you look at Miami-Dade County, they didn't report any crimes for a long time. So not reporting crimes, not finding the guys, etc. By the way, our other sponsor brought to you today, besides a cold winter day in Colorado, is Washington Post. Thank you, Washington Post. You guys are awesome. By awesome, I mean what is wrong with you? Are you in full Trump derangement syndrome? So they had a headline yesterday. I just had the other one pulled up. I can't even. Let me read the headline from the Washington Times. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the left's beloved, quote, religious scholar. Yes, the ISIS terrorist, rapist, murderer, the guy that killed thousands or tens of thousands of people, put people in cages, lit them on fire, beheaded them, all this. He had open sex slave markets for young women, and I think you could buy a virgin for $100. It was the most sickening thing. We're talking, this was 2 years ago that they had an open sex slave market. It's just not right. Anyways, the Washington Times, what do you think their article was? And what will go down as in history as the most ridiculously ridiculous news headline, the Washington Post reported the death of ISIS terror leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi as the end of an austere religious scholar. Seriously, not The Onion. Washington Post. So even the Washington Times goes, hey, Washington Post, The Onion's called. They want their obituary writer back. If only the same newspaper worries much about writing fair and balanced headlines about President Donald Trump or conservatives, right? That's a little more partisan than I wanted to see. Anyways, but the point is, no, seriously, they really said that. And so basically what they had to do was retract the whole thing. Not good. So we'll get out of here. I think that is it for the headlines. I want everyone stay safe, be good, and we will see you guys soon.